We're going all over the place. Oh boy. Starting up. It is starting up. I know. This username was not taken. I'd hope not, since you have it written there. People are joining. We got some questions to do. We got a whole sheet of questions or updates. Put it over there. Oh, morning, everybody. There are people coming in. Good morning. What a day we're gonna have. Questions, answers, updates, all the works. Everyone's flowing in. Hello, hello, hello. Hello, as you guys join. Hello. The stream's just starting up. So, we like to give it, 5 minutes. Let everyone come in. Let everyone get in here. How you guys doing? Good morning. Good morning, April. Good morning. Good to see you. How's everything going? How are your tortoises doing? Oh, this will hopefully be a little bit of a shorter live stream. I don't have a lot to go over. I got a much shorter list, which is good. But obviously, we're going to go through any questions any viewers have, as always. And if anyone wants to see a reptile or has questions on a specific reptile of mine, that's always welcome as well. You guys know the routine. How long have I been doing these end of month live streams for? I feel like a little while now. You have, Tetra, you have a little piece of shed. Not your eye cap, but like right on the skin next to the eye. And that is going to piss you off when I try to get that after today's stream. It's just the littlest speck. But it's right by your eye, which means it would turn into an issue in the next shed. Yeah. Oh, ha, 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 ha. The new babies. I do want to talk about them. I'm going to give a little segment about them because I did make a video about them. And there will be another video in a couple weeks about them. I don't want to overload too much of the new Savannah Monitor baby content, but they're on the list of one of the topics that I just want to give some updates on, so it's all right. Hello, Alicia. First time catching one of these from the start. Oh, I don't know if they're better from the start or if they're better at the very end. That's a good question. It's a good question. Hello, hello, hello. Hello, everyone. Yes, Tetra's here. Tetra's pushing 30 years old. What a beast. What a beast. 30 years old and doing really well. I guess maybe we can address her first because I started talking about her. Her name's on the list. We're going to give it about 3 more minutes, right? Because the stream started at 9:05 Eastern time. And typically I like to give it about 5 minutes for people to float in. And then after that grace period, then they just join where they join. Not a big deal, but hopefully everyone's doing well this morning. What's up? How's it going? Can you at least remember when you were come over here? Try to at least be on the camera if you're just going to lay down and relax. Oh, going backwards. That's what we like to see. What's up? What's up? How's it going? Keep my list visible for me. We got a couple more minutes of just relaxing, talking time. So anyone got any updates they want to tell me, how things have been going, anything like that? Anyone Any big reptile updates or anything in general? We got about 2 minutes here before I'm going to start powering through this list. Oh, I see you have put yourself behind me because when I'm trying to lean back against the couch here, you there's a big snake body part just behind me. Got a 1 day old hatchling. His eyes are closed. He's moving. Okay, great. Blind. Okay, fine. But what? A hatchling of what? Could be anything. Could be anything. Could be a bird. Oh, a veiled chameleon. Okay, cool. No, oh, dude, Roman. Male or female? And so I will go off on a little side note to start this on. I love chameleons. You guys know I had Speedy, my giant. If you don't know, he was a giant male veiled chameleon. I had him for over 10 years. What sucks is most chameleons, 90%, their lifespans are so short. Jacksons are short, especially if they're females and they lay any type of eggs. You're like looking at 2 years. But Jacksons are like a triceratops. They're so cool. Panther chameleons. Now you're getting into chameleons that have really cool colors, like 4 to 6 years. Man, that's not enough for me. Like you get a strong bond. So then there's like three exceptions, and they drastically can change: the veiled chameleon, the Meller's chameleon, and the Parsons chameleon. Okay, and the other weird thing is you have drastically different price points for these three chameleons. So your probably cheapest, longest live, healthiest is your veiled chameleon. That also gets to be a good size because you especially at a reptile show, you can pick them up for around $20. At a pet store, a pet store has more overhead and whatnot. If you can get them between $50 to $100, that's a good buy. Especially if you get a male. Veiled chameleons are really nice because you're able to sex them right away at birth because they have a heel spur, they have a third toe on their two back feet, where the females do not. Look at you trying to escape. And the males will typically get bigger. And then if a male gets like a really big crest on his head, really cool, really friendly chameleons, but so cheap. And they get a decent size, which is also cool. Now, your Mallers and your Parsons can get big, 2 feet, long tongue, um, expensive because the captive breeding world for those is it died off a little bit because chameleon popularity died off. So it is just coming back within like the last 5-ish years. And so they're expensive. Now, veileds, if you can get 10, 12 years, you're kind of pushing it on a veiled chameleon's lifespan, but that's still a great life. Mellors and Parsons people have seen closer to the 2 decade mark. But do you want to pay $1,200 for a Parsons chameleon? It's pretty expensive, right? Like, so. But veils are also really nice. Chameleons typically are really hardy. They can drop down in temperature close to like 40 degrees for short periods of time. Um, so great friendly creatures. I just wish they lived longer. That's all. Social. Open the tank. I don't know if you remember Speedy. He would come running out when I put my hand in there as fast as a chameleon can run. Come right up my arm onto my shoulder and sit. I mean, just God, he was so friendly. Uh, so that's like our greed where we just want it to be longer. That's all. Any ideas how to help him, or is this one? Yeah, there. You just no, you just feed them. You can drip on. You can drip onto their a day old. So typically, when you buy reptiles, you don't get 1 day. You wait for them to get a little established, a week or two, uh, to make sure they're eating, to make sure they don't just suddenly die. But that's normal, right? That's normal. It's still, even though they're hatching, they're not fully developed, right? I got a little Savannah. Oh my gosh, I just love Savannah monitors. We'll get to that, Alicia. They're on the list. They're on the list. Um, my bearded dragon has trouble swallowing. I've been to the vet, given medicines and you know. So if you've been to the vet, it typically they've done some type of you know exam. We'll call it. They've hopefully looked in the mouth and can typically peer down the throat. They- Bearded dragons can be frustrating. Sometimes they can have growths that develop in their mouth. Sometimes their tongues get too big, and they can just have trouble swallowing. And then other times it's just natural. And so what you can do is kind of it depends on what you're feeding. If you're feeding, let's say bugs per se, let's say dubia roaches, because I'll hit this for veggies and for bugs. So dubia, as you know, they have multiple stages before they molt, and they get harder and harder before they get ready to molt. And then once they molt, they're really soft. You can try feeding the softer versions, um, so larger, softer things. Okay, that way it can be a little bit easier to swallow. But now, what happens if you do veggies? Sometimes they can have trouble swallowing veggies because there's not a lot of mass there. So if you're feeding, let's say turnip green, piece of the leaf, it's thin. It can get caught in the mouth. So they're not going to choke, but they're going to have trouble. You can actually try getting a little bit of a bigger piece and kind of balling it up to give it some more substance. So it'll still be soft, but it will be larger, something they can grab onto, and then their um, throat muscles can actually bring it down. So I see that sometimes. If I feed too hard, it can be of a struggle. And if you feed too, not a lot of substance there. So you can roll some turnip greens together, things like that, make it a little bit easier. But yeah, sometimes you'll see them with like turnip leaf in their mouth and they're just like, there's just nothing for those. It's too thin. Those muscles can't grab onto anything. Make it a little bit thicker and it's still going to be soft. Uh, you know, it's just something that I've had from experience. So when I feed, typically I will stack like let's say the turnip leaf is the rip, right? But you can use any green is as big as my thumb, but I'll stack like three little, they're nothing on top of each other, and then I'll roll it, and that way then they're able to bite into it and suck that thing down so easy. And then there's water caught in between the rolls. There's more powder caught in between the rolls. So it just gives them a little bit more mass. But sometimes people too will wrap like a little piece of bell pepper in the turnip leaf or a little piece of yellow squash because again those are soft, but it just gives them something to bite and suck down. Let me just make sure I haven't. We were able to start a dubia colony. Our Beardy and Savannah love them. Yeah, it's we'll get to that. We'll get to the baby saps, and then you'll probably give a lot of input on that when we get there. Um, but cool. But so we got 12 people in here. It's 9:16. I'm gonna power through this list. But if you guys get questions or have a comment on something I say, you can feel free to ask your question at any time. And when I get to a natural break, I'll hit it. So don't worry. Um, so, well, I guess let's talk about because I have Tetra here. We're going to talk about her age pushing, close to 3 decades, which for uh, a captive pet ball python female that is not, being bred like at a snake mill is not old, right? Is not old. We're looking at she's hopefully approaching, 50% of her life, so that's still a long way to go. But uh, talking about her and then other lizards, and we'll put it in. There are natural things that will change with an aging animal, whether it's a human, a reptile, right? Things change. Okay. My grandmother 7 days ago just turned 90. So, it's not as fast as she used to be, which is maybe better because she can't just catch up to you and start smacking you for no reason. So, but good morning, everyone. Good morning. So, when we look at it, there are things that can change. Now, I'm going to focus on reptiles, but some of these could be for some mammals and other things. But what are some things that, you'll notice will start to happen? It doesn't mean that they're sick. It also doesn't mean that they're dying, but these are natural changes that we have to be aware about, sometimes make adjustments for, and just know that they're an old person. Okay. And that's okay that they're old. It's natural, right? So, one thing, I think a big thing that one of them is known and then the other one is kind of overlooked. But obviously, as they get older, they don't shed as often because their skin's not stretching as often. That's to be expected, right? There, there's a negative side to that, though. If they do receive any type of cut or scrapes or things like that, that doesn't heal until the shed occurs, until the new. So, you start to be careful because sometimes people will be like, look, they've got all these scratches and I'm concerned they're not healing. Yeah, they're old and you have to wait for the next shed for it to really start healing. And sometimes it's two or three sheds down the line, which is just normal. They're not like humans. They don't grow a scab and they don't grow just new skin in that area, especially a snake. A snake is not going to, if a snake gets a little cut right here, they can't just grow new skin here and just shed that area and everything's all good. No, they have to go into a full body shed to even heal this little area. So you know that the recovery time is going to take much longer, which is natural. Nothing about, oh, they're old and blah blah blah. Just it's part of that shedding process and that how they naturally heal. The other thing is the shedding process itself usually takes longer. So you have to know this for the behavior of your animal. This tetra, for instance, just got done shedding. Man, I think it was like 3 weeks from the beginning to end shed process. Now, the actual shedding of taking the skin off of her when it was ready to go was like a couple hours, right? But that whole pre-shed and post-shed. So normally snakes will seek out more humidity when they start that they're feeling getting ready to shed. So Tetra just went and plunked herself in her water bowl, all but like her nostrils submerged. Now, I don't want to increase the humidity in the tank yet because I don't want it to be that humid for that long. But she's feeling okay. I'm going to start to shed. I need to make sure this stuff is loose. A younger snake, they'll feel like they have to shed. They'll go in the water. Their eyes will turn blue. The next 2 days, they'll shed. Boom. Now, this was like 3 weeks. And at the end of the 3 weeks, for one day, her eyes turned blue. I still didn't increase the humidity because she'd been soaking that whole time. And then the next day, she shed out, as well as left me a huge poop, which we'll get to as well. So you need to know again, not unhealthy, not anything wrong. And a lot of times people start panicking, right? It's these changes that occur. And one of the reasons why is we say for reptiles, especially, they can't bark, they can't moan. So we typically know when they're healthy or not because of their behavior, but you have to understand when the behavior is changing due to natural aging and sometimes even time of year, right? So you know that about even your lizard. They're going to start shedding drastically less often. And when they shed, it's going to take much longer and be more of a pain in the butt to them. Same thing, eating can slow down. And what's the side effect of eating slowing down? Pooping can slow down. Okay. So it doesn't mean that they're constipated or things like that. Just could happen. Energy levels could start to drop, but sometimes to the ability of what they do. So we're starting to see this change specifically for bearded dragons, but also for other lizards, where people are really starting to build these monstrous tanks, lots of ledges to climb to and whatnot. And that's fine when your reptiles in your prime. I guess their prime, not your prime. But now your reptiles getting older, climbing is getting harder, bones are getting, weaker to move. The potential for a fall is more real. The potential for getting stuck is more real. The potential to not be able to climb up to a basking spot becomes a really real scenario. So you also need to realize when it's time to kind of retire that giant tank. or at least simplify what's in the giant tank. Make sure the basking spot is easier to be reached. Make sure there's not high ledges that they're going to fall off from, fall 18 inches, still inside the tank, but you don't want that. You don't want areas where they can get pinched. Uh, so when I'm seeing the rise of these giant enclosures, which are not necessary, right? Comes a certain point where there's a diminishing return, but that's okay. It's okay, but you just want to make sure that then you are ready or have some type of game plan for what's going to happen when the reptile is older. Can it climb 3 feet in the air anymore to get to the basking spot, like up a straight vertical brick wall? Even if it's a bearded dragon, probably not. Now, was it able to do that like 6 years ago? Yeah, they'll scale right up a brick surface to the basking spot, but you need to have a game plan for when it changes. That's all. It's typically, and it's not just bearded dragons, monitor lizards, even snakes. Although snakes typically have smaller enclosures relative to the size of the snake, right? Most people, even if you have a retic that's like 15 feet, well, you don't have it in a 50-foot enclosure. It's lizards that people typically make giant enclosures for, and then don't have any type of scaling down and temperature control and things like that. So the aging reptile is just something you need to keep in mind of the behavioral changes. But with those behavioral changes, you need to still be monitoring for if they're sick or not. It can get difficult, but it's up to you. Um, and then setup is very important when they get old. So that's about aging reptiles, which is really good. Can you use liquid skin as a band-aid in a scratch? Okay, so Paul, what a great question. What a great question. Because obviously there are animals, reptiles that get injured. I guess we'll start with like turtles and tortoises. What happens when their shell is damaged? Does anyone know? It's pretty fascinating. Like, let's say a huge hunk is taken out of there, uh, or a small little gash that can heal. Well, when you look inside their shell, you're basically looking inside of the abdominal cavity. You can see their heartbeat, depending on where the damage is. So it's kind of fascinating, actually, on what do you do in that instance if the shell cut is gash is small enough. They have used beeswax and things like that to seal the hole. Pretty fascinating. They've also pulled the shell closer together and drilled it together so that it will fuse. The shell looks a little weird, but whatever. But they've also like Frankenstein and stuff, they've patched it. They've they've sealed metal onto it for things to regrow or to permanent. So it's that's how they work with shells instead of like liquid skin. Now with reptiles, a little bit different because liquid skin typically doesn't work. Typically, you keep the area bandaged. Um, if it's so big, it's typically pulled together and sutured. That's that's number one. Uh, but otherwise, you just keep the wound clear. You normally don't do liquid skin, which is one step closer to being super turtle. Yeah. You keep it just you flush the area, you clean the area, you'll iodine flush it or you'll antibiotic ointment flush it. You'll keep the reptile in a clean environment. So if it's got a bigger wound and let's say it's a snake that's naturally on substrate, you'll either change its tank or put it in a recovery tank that doesn't have substrate. And that's what you do. Great question, though. Great question. Do, do, do. All right, let's keep moving here down the list. Okay, we'll do one more topic before we hit the baby salves. Yeah. Okay. Well, let me say this before I change Tetra out. Does anyone have any snake related questions before I swap for something else? Because as I go through this list, and I'm going to talk about lizards after this, uh, I'm going to put her away and get a lizard out. So if anyone has any snake related questions and just wants to do about tetras here, if you think of a snake related question later, You can ask it when I have a lizard out. It's not a big deal. But what I would really like to do, and because she's been awake, is kind of pull Artemis out, um, so you guys can see her, and I can talk about her and lizards and the Savannah Monitor lizards, the baby lizards, which are really cool. But we're gonna go once, snake related question, twice, snake related question, three times. So, oh, here we go. Right at the end. Do snakes engage in any play behavior whatsoever? Play behavior. Play behavior. What a great question. I I don't know if play behavior. I so assuming what you mean, I know what you mean, like playing with the ball or playing around with you. I don't know if I would call anything play behavior. They do exhibit behavior on things that they like. So, but I don't know if I would consider this play behavior, but we'll go into it. So, like, obviously, sometimes you can, take your snake out and they like being cuddled, and I can hold her like a baby, like this. She'll get nice. She'll fall asleep just like this, and I can hold her like this for hours. Okay, you'll put them on your shoulder. They're nice and content, and they'll just hang out and they'll just watch. But what I do with some of my hi baby, what I do with some of my takes snakes and tetra, particularly with the routine, is when I come in the morning, and I say hello about 5 minutes after the reptile lights come on. I do my circle because I'm a little time to be awake, and I say hello to them. And the snakes are always in the front of the tank, ready for that. But what I do is I open the tank. I put them in so they can smell me, but I go to pet them, right? Like I always want to make contact, which they'll just react like this. It's fine. Now, she probably won't do this out of the tank, but can we get so you're not underneath yourself? There we go. But what I'll do with her is, and some of the other ones, is I'll kind of give like the scratchies. So I'll come down like this in her body when she's in the tank, and she's ready for that. And she loves that. And she'll like lift up the whole area where I'm scratching. I'm not really scratching, I'm just right, and she'll lift up that whole area and move through the whole thing. Now, some people would say, "Oh, that's annoying her. That's why she's doing that or moves away." Okay, but hold on, and I'll do a video of this. So I do this. She moves through her whole body, lifts her whole body where it is, and she's ready for this every morning. And then she moves out of it, right? She's pulled her whole body through, and people are like, "Oh, that was annoying her. She didn't like it. She got away from it." Except I keep my hand there, and I'm still doing that. And then she does another rotation and comes right through. Whole body up in the air as it's going through, like, it's scratching her, it's massaging her, it feels good. Puts her whole body through. Now she's on the other side of the tank. Another loop comes right through, and she'll be flat. And that area that hits it, she'll push up like this to get really good contact. If I just put my hand in there to just pet her, she just lays there. I pet her. If I put my hand in there and don't move it and she's off doing something, she doesn't come through it. She'll just lay there. Once I start the scritches movement, that's when she'll come and interact with that. I don't know if I would call that play behavior, or she just likes getting a massage or likes getting, her back scratched. So she just comes and lets that get done. So they do reciprocate good feelings and good things like that. But I don't know if they'll do, playing where like a lizard or a dog would, that just would do things just for fun. I think she's doing that more because it feels good and she wants that done. And this is all it is. Just take your hand. And I don't actually move my hand. I just stay in one spot and she'll pull through. All right. Very good. Hopefully that kind of made sense, answered your question. I don't. I'm going to put her back, though, so you can think of any other questions. Hopefully, Alicia is still in here. Hopefully, her name's pronounced Alicia. Could be Alyssa, I guess, too. Who knows? Because the C could be like that. It was just Alicia. I think it's Alicia. Who the heck knows? All right, I'm going to go put her back, and we'll be back with the lizard, and we'll go over some lizard things from the list, and then we'll be done. Hopefully 20, 25 minutes. All right. All right. Perfect. I'll be just right back. Come. Where are we going? Where are we going? We're going to the first live stream. That's where we're going. But I mean, where are you going? Hopefully, we don't have 500 comments when we return. How is Tortellini doing? Tortellini is doing great. That's how he's doing. Thank you for asking. He's a big boy, and he's doing really, really well. Right? Right. Okay. Kind of, there you go. That's fine. I'll just hold your butt so you don't fall. Okay, so let's give a little bit of update on the Savannah Monitors, even though you've seen them in their videos, and on Artemis herself, and things like that. If I lean, will you slide down? You probably will. Oh well. So the baby Savannah Monitors are, gosh, like I said before, man, it's been a long time since I've had a baby lizard. I rescue old or sick lizards, right? Oh, careful. You almost fell. I knew that would happen because you were kind of leaning. I knew that would happen. I rescue old and sick lizards, right? You guys know that. So these babies, I am just not used to them, a lizard it's been a long time for a lizard to be tapping on the glass at 6:30 a.m. for food. Okay, and I have two of them, so I get it in stereo, which is even better. So they are eating like crazy. Number one, they are, because of that, pooping like crazy, but they are getting so tame. I pet them. I pick them up in my hand. They don't run. They don't do anything anymore. I'm hand feeding them now. When I go next to the tank, they come right up to the front. They're all happy to see me. So it is just going very well for the baby Savannahs, which is cool. And then for Artemis and Apollo, things are also going just great. So Artemis was already mostly tamed down because she was held and interacted with. Apollo wasn't, like I said, but he has so quickly found out that food comes from me. So whenever he sees me, more than Artemis, who just lays there knowing that I'm going to bring her food and she's just like, feed me, master. Apollo comes running, sprinting from wherever he is in the tank every time I open the tank, ready for food. And I always make sure I have the super worms right next to there, that I reward that behavior, right? So he gets a super worm every time. Every time I open the tank. Uh, Hello. Oh, hey, X Turtle. What's up, man? Hello, hello. So that is going really, really well. But I did film a short that I'll show you guys. Artemis and Apollo are now have been taught how to play with toys and actually look very forward to playing with toys. And they will play tug of war with me with this colorful rope toy. But I'm trying to get to see if I would be able to get them to play tug of war with each other, because that would be pretty sweet. It would also make it easier on me that I could just put this really big thick rope in there and you know, not supervised, of course, have them play with it. So that would be quite cool. But they look forward to the food and they look forward to the toys, and they know that they're different, which is good so far, because you see there's a difference when with a monitor lizard, when it you can tell when it's trying to eat something and when it's just trying to like chew up and destroy something. So even if a monitor lizard grabs something that's too big, anyone who's had one, you've seen this behavior. But let's if you don't, you'll see them kind of trying to do like the where they try to suck it down, where they grab it and they kind of open their mouth real quick and trying to like grab it and just like they try to suck this thing in. So that's how you know, even if they have a toy, do they see it as a toy or do they see it as something they're trying to eat? And Artemis never has done that, but Apollo was trying to do that in the beginning. Everything was basically like food to him. So he was trying to grab and suck everything down. But now he's kind of realized with certain things, like the thicker rope, hey, this is just something I want to chew on. I want to flail it. He throws it up in the air. He death rolls with it. So that different level of behavior and understanding is really important, because people will say, and this is the common uh, misconception, that they will just try to eat everything, or they don't realize anything they bite, they just think that they can eat. And there's definitely a difference of behavior, because even when they have something that's huge that there's no chance they can eat. There's no chance they can swallow it. Even if it's super hard, you can see the eating behavior, because your lizard will still be attempting to eat it, even though there's no chance. And so that's how you know in their mind, I want to say food, like it's still represented as food, but it's at least represented as something that they want to eat, right? Because like kids want to eat marbles, but marbles are not food, or batteries or magnets, when they're smaller. So looking at that type of behavior, and for when that behavior switches to, oh, this is just something I want to chew on. Now you always need to realize that there's always a danger, because if it's just something that they're chewing on and then it ends up too far in their mouth and then they just end up swallowing it, or for whatever reason that behavior snaps from, hey, I just want to chew on this, to, hey, I just want to eat this. There's always that danger. So uh you shouldn't let them play with toys unsupervised if there's a chance that they can eat it. If it's just a giant Kong ball, right? Artemis is this big. If I have like the largest size Kong ball, she can chew on it all day without my supervision. It's bigger than the size of my head, right? Like if I gave her a toy the size of a basketball, well, she no chance. She's not swallowing that. So it's safer. Um, but still supervising is good. And also I don't like to leave toys with the toys for too long, because then they kind of get normalized with it. Maybe they get bored of it, or maybe they don't care. I want to keep it as a reward or something exciting that we do together, just so it's more fun and it doesn't become stale, even though I obviously have a lot of toys and always looking out for something else cool. But seeing that change in mental of I want to chew on this or I want to try to eat this behavior change as your reptile starts to understand things. It's just an observation that's really cool. So Alicia and anyone else who's got a monitor, when you watch for that behavior, it's really awesome. You're really getting heavy right on my stomach, you know that, and you're just laying there. You don't even care. Thank you. All right, let's go through this here real quick. Let me look at the chat, and then I got just a little bit more. But supervisor. Wait, sorry for my confusion. But do you have 4 new Savannah monitors now? Yes, that is correct. 2 babies that are not named yet, and Artemis and Apollo. 2 separate videos showing both. My sow was kept in a pet shop that is completely uneducated, kept with no heat or moisture, very thin layer of pellets, and fed a diet puree of hornworms. Yeah, that's okay that he's huffing and hissing. It's a smart lizard. Savannah monitors are so smart. They'll figure things out pretty quickly. Um, like I said, there was, well, I had told the people. So again, guys, if you are a Patreon member, I'm in the Discord voice chat, not every night, but I try to make it at least 4 to 5 nights a week, at least. Sometimes it's 3, sometimes I'm traveling for work, but I am in the text chat. But also, that means that I do a lot, and not just me, the other Discord members, of video. So, like impromptu live streams of the animals, of the reptiles, showing training, showing feeding, just like, hey guys, I got to feed my snakes. It's going to take like 5 minutes. If you want to come in and watch me feed all of my steaks, boom, 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 feel free to join. We'll just talk about whatever during it, either reptiles or whatever, sometimes talking about board games or video games. It's all over the place, right? But I actually talked about a story about these 2, like, just wimpy, poorly kept Savannah monitors I saw at a pet store. And it's unfortunate. Now, hopefully, at a pet store, the one thing you can get from a pet store is, if you're lucky, if the reptile is lucky, they're not there for a long period of time. That's the biggest rush, right? You're hoping that they're there, someone comes and gets them out of there, like you did, Alicia. But I try to, because of that, I try to not go to pet stores because then you want to, like, save everything that's in there. And realistically, you can't do that. So it just is, it's tough, right? It's tough. So it's easier just to stay out of there. It's better off going to a reptile show because, yeah, okay, then you see things maybe in like their little plastic Dixie cups or whatever, but that's no one's, they're not living in that. That's there for the show. That way you can buy it, you can take it home, and you're good to go, right? No one's raising anything in that. It doesn't work. It's just for the couple hours of the show, and that's it. That's all right. And then they do have tanks for other things. So, just to be clear. All right. Mr. 9000 with a $50 donation, which is just amazing. Thanks so much. Love all of the babies. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Just amazing. Thank you so much. Let's see here. Let's keep going through. I am being patient, working with him or her every day. About 16 inches long. Wow, that's significantly large, right? That's not a baby. It's almost a foot and a half. The problem is, no idea, because could have been, could be a year old. That would be the natural age of about a year old. But if they were in proper conditions, right? So when you take something, like you had already stated that they weren't in the greatest condition, when you take something that maybe is being underfed or not fed nutritious or doesn't have good lighting, you can slow its growth down. And then if you slow its growth down, you can no longer use the length or weight to determine growth. But even still at that age, the most working you should be doing at the very beginning, because maybe it's unfriendly to people, is just feeding. Like, just feed the lizard. Don't try to really, and if the lizard becomes distracted by the food, right, and the lizard's going to eat a lot, that's your time to pet the lizard. Pet the lizard while you're feeding the lizard, because hopefully, and you always have the next piece of food ready, right, with your tongs or whatever. And they shouldn't care that you're petting them. They should be so laser focused on the food. And then you stop petting right before you're done feeding. Like, if you're feeding dubia roaches, when you got one roach left, stop petting. You feed the last roach, and that's your interaction. And don't just randomly pet it. Don't do any of that yet. And you should be petting them every time you're feeding them. That way, then they're saying, hey, the feeding is good, because they're always going to say that the feeding is good. And then the petting is happening with the feeding. So now naturally the petting becomes good. Hey, feeding is great. Oh, and guess what? Anything that happens to me during this great time is also great. Guilty by association. So that's great. So don't just go in there and pet, because then the petting is bad and then they're letting it. So just feed, pet, feed, pet. How do you determine the sex of them? Oh, we'll get to that. It's really undercap for any lizard, although it works with any super food motivated lizard. Typically, Savannah monitors and other monitors are laser focused on food. So you could trim their nails, you could do anything while you're feeding them. They're just focused on that food. And the food is always good. So anything you do during that time will over time click into their mind as good. And then you stop, and you can hang out outside of the enclosure, but don't just go for the pet. I will do sometimes where I open the enclosure and Apollo will come up and he thinks I'm going to feed. I'll give him his one food, because it's not feeding time, but it's his treat for coming up. He'll climb on me, he'll sniff me, and then he'll just scurry away, or he'll just lay down and not care. That's it. I don't go in for the pet yet on him. Artemis, I open the tank and I pet her whenever I want. Just pet her and that's it. And he also watches when I do that. But so there's that little bit of a time where you got to get over that, and then eventually you can treat him, pet him, and then when you're done, give him the treat. So what I do is open it up, give him his worm, pet him, pet him, pet him, stop petting him, give him a worm, close the tank, walk away. Because you got to break that wildness of the pet store, which is good. But this can go towards bearded dragons, towards anything. Super food motivated lizards are. And how do you determine the sex? Anthony asks. Well, if specifically, Anthony, if you're talking about monitor lizards, it's difficult, to be honest with you, until they reach sexual maturity. When they are, sometimes you'll be lucky if you put them in a new environment, they'll want to spread their scent into it. They want to establish dominance, and they will invert their sexual organs, whether male or female. But when you do this when they're so young, it can be hard to tell, because it can be hard to tell that if they're hemipenes or if they're hemiclitori, because their hemipenes will be so small still. So you sometimes will wait, and their hemipenes have to get larger, and then you can tell the difference. That's pretty much it. You're pretty much waiting for their hemipenes to get large enough to be able to tell that they're hemipenes. That's how you tell. It's actually what happened. I go there to buy cat food, and I've seen them there for 2 Oh, I know. There were dead yeah, it happens. And also with pet stores too, like, I don't want to rag on pet stores, because I have a lot of reptiles as well, but you do too. You can walk by and your reptile tank can be pristine. And then you walk by and then you have company come over or your mom goes in your room, and 5 minutes before the company comes over or goes to see the reptile, your reptile takes a huge crap. Super clean enclosure. It just decides to take a huge crap right at that moment. Maybe it steps in the crap. Maybe it runs through the crap and spreads it everywhere. And now the tank has literally been crap covered for 2, 3 minutes, right? You don't have a poop alarm set, so you don't know. Someone's going to come look and be like, this enclosure is filthy. Your reptile's living in filth. So, you know, you have to understand that aspect. They just poop at random times. They can go through the poop. They could not go through the poop. Sometimes they hide the poop. It's so there's a catch 22, right? Now, if you see something over the course of time, 2 months, then maybe every time you see it, it's always dirty. Yeah, but reptile stores are hard. If you have a lot of reptiles and they all decide to poop at the same time or close to it, you're going to systematically start at one end and go to the other end cleaning, right? Well, there's potential you start at this end and some didn't poop and you're cleaning, and now you're a third of the way through, and then some of the ones that didn't poop at the front have now pooped. Well, you're not going to turn around and go. You're going to complete, and then you'll go. But but if someone walks in the store and they see poop, oh, there's poop in the enclosure. Well, yeah, because I cleaned the 2 enclosures above him and there was no poop. And now I'm in this section and he pooped while I was in this section. And I will double back at the end, like we're on poop watch every, let's say, I mean, let's be realistic. You're at a store, so maybe you have a staff. So even if you did it like every hour that you did a specific poop patrol like that, or spot clean as you walk by and see it, but you're not walking by every 1 minute, so you can come in and see poop and be like, it's like, yeah, but it wasn't there 5 minutes ago. Now if you go in and you see like 4 mounds of poop, yeah, like, right, problem. So you just have to make sure we don't critique them too bad. Could also be maybe that day someone called in sick, so things, just that day, things are getting done a little slower, or it could have happened when the most of the team was on lunch break and there's only one person there. So yeah, the reptiles pooped, but you need to wait, an extra 30 minutes for the staff to get back, and then they'll go through and clean up. So you just you don't want to over critique, you don't want to under critique. That's all. Your videos have taught me how to safely and properly interact, feed, and give space. Yeah. Um, if I were to tell if I told someone, hey, I just got Artemis, because all reptiles are different. I personally just got Artemis, I don't know, what was it, 2 weeks ago, maybe 3 weeks ago. And she's sleeping in my bed every night. We've already bonded like that. Like that. Boom, boom, boom. She hangs out. Look at this. She could leave. I'm not holding her. She could go wherever she wants right now. She just wants to hang out. She feels totally fine. Her body's completely limp. So, but that's because of how she was raised. She was raised knowing humans are safe. And then there was a little bonding period with us, and 3 or 4 days, and then that's it. She was bonded. Good. Others may take a month, others may take a year. Typically it's faster if you start them as a baby because they don't know fear. But if you do pick up something that was older that was mistreated, then you have a little bit more work to do. But still, it's good. It fixes itself, so it's okay. Just a little bit more work. But again, that's why I try to make these videos. Do you, Endercatus, do you have a favorite reptile? And then do you have a favorite arthropod? Arthropod, look, if I was to just give an insect, let me just put an insect in there. Make it a little bit easier for everyone. Dude, I love praying mantises. I love them. I had 2 praying mantis pets of just small ones I caught outside and put in a tank. Made this sweet tank, and they're smart as well. And I would tongue feed it, and just to see the way they would grab these things and rip them open and eat them in their hand like that, they are just so cool, especially the males, obviously, right? But and if you get them when they're young, seeing them molt and completely change form to all of a sudden they got these big wings and everything, so cool. Unfortunately, it's also something that has a very short lifespan, of course, because everything cool tends to. But the fascination with them started with, we had a garden growing up and we had bugs, so we bought like a praying mantis, cocoon that had however many hundreds of babies in it, and you put it in your garden, and then they hatch and they stay nearby where they hatch. So like we just had all these awesome praying mantises. It was absolutely amazing. I think it was like $5. It's like $5 for 1,000 praying mantises in 10 days. Okay, sounds fine. So it's really cool. And then favorite reptile, you know, it's tough. So I like the larger reptiles, even though you can look, bearded dragons are smart. You can train bearded dragons. You can train snakes, but the larger reptiles are something that you can treat a little bit more like a dog. You can pet them a little bit harder. You can sleep them in your bed, especially when they get big. I wouldn't want to take a nap with a bearded dragon. It's like sleeping with a baby. You're not supposed to do it. You don't want to roll over and crush this thing. Well, you're not going to crush a 4 foot, 4.5 foot, 6 foot lizard that you can tame down just as much. And so for me, that's a little bit better. But also, I believe that they get smarter than a bearded dragon, even though bearded dragons and smaller lizards do get smart. We talked about chameleons and things like that, but I believe they have the potential. So if it was a monitor lizard, my number one go-to would be a Savannah monitor, followed by the black throats. The only reason that the black throats are down a peg is because they do get so big. That's okay if you can fit it, but for most people, they can't. People can fit a Savannah monitor lizard really easily. But if you want a little bit of a difference and typically calmer, some type of rock iguana, and here's where the big benefit of the rock iguana comes from, the lifespan difference. Savannah monitors, you're really lucky if you push into the teens, and then really, really lucky if you get the late teens. These rock iguanas, Cuban rock, Cuban brack, rhino iguanas, 60 years, 40 to 60 years. That's a lot of intelligence, and they're veggie eaters. So they're much calmer if you want them to interact with your cat or something like that. They're they're not typical to try to eat the warm-blooded creature because of that. So you have some benefits. Now, the veggie eaters eat daily. They typically poop daily. Think about what it is, but normally they're cheaper to feed. This has to eat bugs. Got a bug colony? Start one or buy them. Blackthroats, they're eating meat. So there's pluses and minuses. I love Asian water monitors. It's a big lizard, smart lizard. It's a big lizard. So everything has its pluses, but monitors are just so, I mean, look at this. So smart. And you can do a little bit more from. And I've probably seen a dragon mantis, but I don't recall specifically off of my head. I'll look it up later. Let's see. I like how that one was chasing mantis. That's pretty funny. I have a pet tarantula. Okay, so I have a tarantula as well, Maleficent. This is where you're lucky because you have a female, and so most female tarantulas live longer, get larger, are a little bit healthier. But tarantula lifespans are all over the place. But male lifespans are typically short, under 5 years. That's just their life cycle. They go, they mate, they die. This kind of sucks. Luckily, you can sex a tarantula pretty early after birth, so you do know what you're buying. Females are a little more expensive. Males are a little bit cheaper because of that fact. Um, and then depending on the type of tarantula, prices are all over the place. They're pink toed, you can get at PetSmart, I don't know, $30. They don't even know if it's male or female. They have no clue. Uh, giant bird eating, a little bit more expensive. You got some with really nice colors, trapdoor tarantulas, things like that. So it's all over the scale for tarantulas. Can you potty train the big lizard? Yeah, absolutely you can. Both my black throats are potty trained. Simba, as you know, was potty trained. Artemis is, I would want to say 100%, but I'm not sure yet because I've had her for so long. The first day, she didn't poop where I wanted her to poop. And every day since then, she has. Nala is completely potty trained. Link is completely potty trained. And the babies are, it's easier to start as a baby. The babies are, I feel like almost above 90% potty trained, but it's really easy. Yeah, you don't have accidents, which is really nice. Napping with Komodo dragon sounds mentally. Well, Piper, so like, I probably don't want to nap with something that could easily kill me. It's a little bit different, right? I don't want to nap with a hippo, even if it's friendly while I'm awake. What is that one at the San Antonio Zoo? The one where they bring up to the front and put food. Is it Timothy? Timothy the hippo? It may be. But so there's always accidents that can happen. You could be feeding something and it misses the food and grabs you. So you need to know how those reactions happen. And then if it was something that was extremely venomous, now it's accidentally bitten you and it's accidentally injected you with some type of venom or toxin, right? So these things you need to keep in mind. Because look, you can get bit by your pet dog. You can get bit or scratched the crap out of by your pet cat. You can get kicked in the head by your pet rabbit or bit by. So there's you can get punched in the face by your brother or sister, right? So there's always something that can happen. You just need to know, you want to try to limit, the worst case scenario. So getting bit by something that's not going to inject you with a deadly toxin is probably a little bit safer. Also getting bit by something that the mouth, won't take a giant cut out of you, probably a little safer. My gecko is potty trained. Yeah, it's actually fascinating how easily, not all, but it's fascinating how easily most reptiles can be potty trained. And we're going to wrap this up, guys, because we just went over the 1 hour. So shoot out any questions you got. We're going to bullet down. It doesn't matter what they're about. Shoot them out. It can be on any reptile or anything like that. Just shoot them out, and I'm going to finish up now. Can you potty train beardies? Yeah, see you later, Undercat. Yeah, see you later, Undercat. Beardies, I've had, I have mixed results on. So I wouldn't really say yes, just because I can't find a method that sticks with all beardies. Do I have beardies that are potty trained? Yeah, I do. Do other people? Yeah, they do. But then there's just as many. There's typically a really easy way to potty train most lizards, and it's very uniformed. But for beardies, it honestly seems a little bit more hit and miss and more focused on the individual beardy itself. I never have been bitten by spiders. I have them for. Yeah, I've actually never been bitten by a spider either. I've handled a lot of tarantulas. I, as a kid, daddy long leg spiders, and but I know people who have been bitten by spiders as well. So, I mean, you could easily Google, and a lot of people get bit by spiders. So it's right. The potential is always there. Low chance, probably, but just know that the potential's there. Now, like you saying you never got bit by spiders, but would you like free handle or stick your hand in like a shoebox full of black widows? Probably not. I hope not. Right. So, but again, we're like kind of mitigating the potential. So there's a small possibility when you're holding your tarantula that it could bite you, but if it doesn't have deadly venom, maybe you get a little sting, a little pinch feeling, maybe a little swelling in that localized area at best. That's much easier than up this little thing but bit me, this black widow, in 5 minutes my hand's gonna start rotting and I'm gonna be dead. So, we look at that. How often do you get asked to take rescue reptiles? And then we'll go back for Piper. So taking them in, which is what happened with Artemis and Apollo, taking like rescuing and adopting in, it's hit or miss. It's all over the place, and sometimes I get asked a lot for things that are common but pains and I can't take in. So all the time I get asked for these super huge spiders, or not spiders, snakes. I can't I can't take care of 20 reticulated pythons. It's not happening. Turtles, so like weekly for those. Turtles weekly. Weekly for turtles. Um and also sometimes with larger things. So as much as taking them in, sometimes I have to help locate a good home for them. Now, daily I get asked for help with reptiles. People will bring them here. They need me to cut nails. They need me to flush eyes. They want, just a little spot health check done. They want advice if they should go to a vet or not. You know, that happens all the time. So it's all over the place. Sometimes I take a reptile in. Now I do boarding as well. So sometimes someone is going to go on vacation for a week. You do with all your reptiles. If you have a snake, you're all right. Fill the water bowl, and you fed them 2 weeks ago. You're good, and you take off. But what if you have a bearded dragon or something? Well, either I can take it in a small tank or its tank, or I can just come over and feed and clean, once a day, etc. So that happens all the time. That is just a crazy driving from house to house to house uh, mess. But I get it because it's not like a dog kennel. You don't want to just go drop this thing off, especially you may not want it to put in environment. So when boarders come, there's a specific room they go in. They don't go in with my reptiles because I don't know if this thing has a disease, you know. So it's basically quarantined away from things, but it's not in a quarantine tank because it's not sick, if that makes sense. And I use my tanks, they all get disinfected after and in between, and they're pretty basic setups. But the longest someone was gone was like 5 days, but it could be longer. But that's easier. Most of the time, people just want me to go there and feed and clean and interact with, which is fine. Let's see here. Can crested and gargoyle geckos mate? Well, they're all. Yeah, so Piper, that's actually a really good question. There's First off, there's really nothing that will stop two species, even if they're different species, that just want to mate or the male decides to mount uh, from happening. So, like monitor lizards cross mate all the time. Now, so it's not a question of if they can mate, because for sure they can. So then we have the next question on what happens from there. A lot of the times after the mating, they can't actually the semen from the different species is unable to actually fertilize the egg. So the DNAs don't match up when the semen hits the egg. Nothing happens. So it's almost as if it didn't take place. But good question. Um, I have not seen, and sometimes we do get not like a mule because a mule actually lives and is alive, right? You have what are they, ligers and tigons, right, and mules. So you do have these cross species, but a lot of times you get a deformed thing that is also dead in the egg. It didn't form correctly. So there's no really successful crossbreeding breeds of reptiles like that. There is successful breeding, though, in same species but different localities. So, like with eastern and central bearded dragons, um, and that's typically where you do get birth defects, and your birth defect is what we call, to make it sound better, a morph of some kind, right? Because all of the color morphs in pythons, snake, they're all genetic mutations, birth defects is what you would call them, right? You inbred, and then you got this thing. Now, whether it negatively affects the life or not, it depends on that whole thing. But so far with lizards, we don't really have successful cross species breeding. Turtles and bearded dragons are the most commonly abused reptiles IMO. I've been an exterminator for a long. Yeah, so well, the reason why turtles and bearded dragons are because they're cheap and they're sold everywhere. That's your common pet shop go to. If your pet store says it sells reptiles, and sometimes even just fish stores, turtles, bearded dragons, those are the two things for sure you'll see. Uh, and why does that happen? Well, they're so cheap and they start so small. You know, if you get a turtle that's, I think in the US, the turtle has to be as big as a 50-cent piece, which means it's fully absorbed the yolk, so you don't have to risk salmonella. But also, when they were so small, little kids would take that turtle and put the turtle in its mouth and suck on the turtle. But what happens is these things end up, the turtles end up getting big, the turtles end up pooping a lot, and people just don't want to care about them. So then people abuse them. Bearded dragons end up living and getting larger and living more than 2 years. And then they need, you need to take care of them every day, clean their poop, feed them, and people don't do that. So then they get sick, then they die. So it kind of sucks. I always say something like that. Hey, I just got one a few months ago, and I was just wondering if you had some idea for a new 75-gallon tank design. If I had some ideas, probably what he's saying. So Tyler, what did you just get? It's a bearded dragon, I'm guessing, maybe. And then that's going to be it, guys. We're wrapping up. So any last questions, shoot them out. But yeah, Tyler, if you could just, I see your question there. Hey, you just got one. Oh, a Savannah monitor. All right. Oh, great. It little bit of substrate, right? They do a little digging. They don't dig these massive pits. They do a little digging. Um, and substrate that is just as deep as your monitor is all you need, because it's typically not going to dig to the bottom. So when you have babies, this much substrate is great. You have an adult, you know, this much substrate works, 6-8 inches, you're good to go. I'd like to do a basking platform, raise them up a little bit so they can bask a little bit higher, and then have ways to dig when they're older. When they're babies, I just put, I have my baby set up there, but I don't know how big your monitor is, because obviously if it's a baby, you really don't want to throw a 75-gallon tank is pretty big. Um, can be a little stressful for them to be that large because they feel more vulnerable. So then they're exposed more. So you kind of want to work that up, but you can do that by just partitioning off. You don't even have to partition all the way to the top. You do a couple, 3-4 bricks that they can't climb over, or plywood wall for right now. It doesn't have to go all the way up. But yeah, just something that they can go in, like a cave, something they can climb on, a water bowl they can soak in, and a hot area with UVB. They're really pretty simple lizards. They like to just lay out on something hot from below, and they like to go in their water and go into a cave. And that's it. They're cheap, misinformation. Yeah, I mean, the pet store will always have misinformation because they have high schoolers working there, and they may even be working there just for a summer or a year, but then they need to know about the food. They're not a specialized. They can't know everything, right? For a reptile, it doesn't work like that. Even if they have a reptile department, even if they have someone that's at the reptile department, they can't pay for someone to just be at the reptile department and specialize only in reptiles. That's lost money. So that just doesn't work. If you have only a reptile store by you, you're a little bit better. But a lot of times, even then, you have like reptiles and fish, or reptiles, fish, and birds, or So that's just the way that is. Typically, if you want better information, you go to a reptile expo where there's a breeder who's been breeding and caring for bearded dragons for 20 years, 30 years, or Savannah Monitors for 20, 30 years. He's a yearling about a foot and a half. Okay, so that's pretty big. Yeah, I mean, just a water dish, basking with heat, and a cave. And that's it. Like Apollo and Artemis, they just sleep right there on the basking platform. It shuts off so it cools down. Just the radiant heat panel controls their heat. But they only went away, like when I first got them, they would go in the cave at night because they were a little scared at night. They wanted to feel safe. Now they know that their whole enclosure is safe. They understand that when this door is closed, it's basically a force field, even though they can see through it. So they don't even go in at night anymore. They just hunker down right there. Are Gila monsters, even though that venomous? It's funny because the vet who did some surgery has a Gila lizard. Yeah, they are. Their venom is, you'll lose a finger. It's definitely like there's only a couple really venomous lizards, and they're one of them. Great question. All right, we're gonna head out of here, right, Artemis? Right? You did such a good job. You just liked hanging out. You just like being the star of the show. Yeah. All right, guys. So we'll see you at the end of next month, the last Saturday of the calendar for that month. Sometimes it's Sunday if there's a holiday, but I post a day or a couple days before. And then you're going to get your video once a week, and you're going to start seeing some shorts from me again because I fully have healed over the loss of my best friend, and I got energy back to want to do stuff. So that's good. All right. And I got lots of updates that I don't want to just put in long videos that can just be out in shorts. Right? Right. All right. Take care, everybody. Thanks for stopping by. And if you haven't, just make sure when you stop by and watch one of my videos that you leave a like and any type of comment, even if you just say hello. That interaction is all YouTube uses to know if you have a good video or not. So if you watch a video and you don't leave the like, YouTube sees that as you don't like the video. Mind blowing, even though they have a dislike option. We'll get to that in a second. If you watch a video and you leave a dislike, it doesn't mean you didn't like it. That means that you hated it and you actually don't want other people to see it. And then if you leave a like, that means that you like the video and other people should see it. But so you would think that just watching it and being neutral is fine. No, YouTube says that's bad video because you didn't like the video. Mind blowing. Yeah, so Piper, I do a live stream once a month. Once a month, so you get from me, you get 3 videos at least. One video every weekend. You typically get some shorts thrown in every once in a while, and then the last Saturday is the live stream. So if you do watch a certain video of mine during that week, and let's say you have questions, it's so hard for me to go through these thousands and thousands of questions. You just kind of keep your question and then you can ask it during the live stream. Pretty sweet way. And it's okay if it's a question from videos from, even a year ago or anything like that. But trust it does good because people will watch, those other three videos. So you get three videos, you may get some questions, and then on live stream day number 4, you can ask them away and I can explain and answer. All right, guys, take care. Have a good day. All right, let's get out of here.